My brother and I had moved back to our hometown, Springfield, both a little bit rudderless, so not knowing exactly what we wanted to do with our careers. I had come back to start at least my master's in education, so I had at least an idea of the next career for me. So I was substitute teaching. At the same time, I noticed the Kansas City Star had a Royals blog within the Kansas City Star, and I reached out to my brother, and the Chiefs were had some really bad years, and we had a lot of opinions, as you noted, very fanatical about our Chiefs. And so when I saw the Kansas City Royals blog, I called my brother and I just said, "Why don't we do this for the Chiefs?" Because he had just actually entered a contest for Fox Sports. It was called Fox Sports Next Great Sports Writer. He got far in the competition, ended up getting second. And I still tell people that today that him getting second was the best thing that happened for both of us. Because one is if he got first, he would have gone on to have a career with Fox Sports, and maybe the idea never happens. And when he gets second, obviously he didn't have a job with Fox. I saw the Royals blog on Kansas City Star, and I told him I had a little bit of background in web design and a little bit of background in graphic design. I always tinkered and played. Let's start a Chiefs blog and see what happens.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun at all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today's episode is brought to you by Palacio and Partners, providing turnkey podcast creation, hosting, production, promotion, and related creative resources for you and your business. Today, Jeff is interviewing Zach Best. Zach is the founder and general manager of FanSided.com, a website dedicated to blogging and news stories of all Major League sports in the United States. Zach is also an executive vice president for Minute Media, the current owner of FanSided.com. Zach started FanSided with his brother, originally as a blogging site for the Kansas City Chiefs. The two soon realized the opportunity to expand coverage to all Major League teams in all Major League sports. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Zach.
Zach, welcome to the Corporate Couch today.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I'm glad to be here and excited to get into a conversation with you.
What a career. I love it. I've done, 135 episodes to date. We're recording here in March in 2025. And what I love about people that have done great things is their career journey is not planned. And you went from, education and being a teacher to, while you were doing that or going to school for it, you started a company basically and still involved in it. And we'll talk about that. It has to do with sports, so that's great. So and our friend, mutual friend, Mark Schaefer introduced us. So Mark's a generous connector and always introduces me to great people, and you're one of them. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's been an exciting journey, and like you said, sometimes you never know where life will take you, but that's the exciting part of it sometimes too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I usually have kind of a standard warm-up question, but I'm going to start with another one, just because you're so involved in sports and especially the NFL. But I know it's like 300 different coverage areas, and we'll talk about FanSided here shortly. But being a lifelong Chiefs fan, and that's how you got into this business, what is your opinion of my favorite team, the New York Jets?
That's a tough one. I want to try not to make all of Jets fandom mad at me, but I think they would agree. I think the biggest issue is ownership. I think as we talk about leadership in this call, I think you're only as good as usually the top, and that ideally works its way through the organization. And if you're ran by poor ownership group or um, um, you know bad leaders, it can really affect the entire organization. I think a good example of that is the Commanders. Washington notoriously had an owner that was difficult for the organization. Obviously, had some other issues within, and then they switch hands, and all of a sudden they have pretty instant success. Obviously, that's drafting the right guy, but I
Yeah.
really I really believe ownership is a big piece of success, or the top leaders, and then obviously every level below that.
Yeah, so true. I mean, and that's what I say. Like Woody Johnson's just so bad. It's just terrible. I mean, who's a worse owner, Woody Johnson or Jerry Jones?
It's tough. It's one's good at business, and as far as at least running the Cowboys brand, and I don't know. It just feels like everything they try in Jets, if it's going young quarterback, old quarterback,
Yeah.
different coaches. I'm hopeful for Aaron Glenn because I think he's a good quality coach. But again, you're only good as the ingredients, as Bill Parcells used to say, as you get. I think there's another bad ownership group in Dallas right now. After Mark Cuban sold the Mavericks, you question what they're doing with that
Right.
team. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that trade. I'm like, what were they thinking? I don't know.
yeah.
Anyhow, so even people that know you fairly well, Zach, what one thing would surprise them about you?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. Surprised about me. I'm pretty normal, everyday Joe. I think my passion for people with intellectual disabilities is not something. If you know me, obviously, I have a child with Down syndrome, but I'm very passionate about inclusive environments, giving people opportunities. I think it really is something that we've gone a long way over the last 30, 40 years, but I still feel like there's a long way we can still go of providing opportunities, how we communicate, how we work with people with ID.
Yeah, and I did know that, and we're going to get into your involvement with the Special Olympics here later on in the conversation. But talk about where you grew up and what was fun for you growing up, what you loved doing.
Yeah, I grew up in Springfield, Missouri. Moved here when I was about 5 years old, and my dad was a fanatic about sports. So basically, all year round, I was playing soccer, running track, playing basketball, then morphed into playing football. So a lot of my childhood was really around team sports specifically. I love that bond you get, competing with others, and really giving it your all. I think there's so much people can learn from individual sports, but team sports as well. Just how to overcome obstacles, overcome difficult challenges. So that's a lot of my childhood was around sports. Got to travel a lot. My dad's a cardiologist, so we were fortunate to be able to experience a little bit more of the world rather than just Missouri. So I have a passion for travel. I love getting that exposure to different cultures, different environments. But then also, as you know, there's some lakes around here, and got to spend some summers on the lake, tubing, skiing, all those fun things,
Yes. Yeah.
fishing.
Table Rock Lake, one of the nicest lakes in the country for sure.
It really
Um,
is a hidden gem, just because of how the Corps of Engineers owns it and keeps it.
yeah. Yeah, so clean, so clean. It's great. Um, yeah. So, did you have aspirations to be in the Olympics or play, in any professional sports? Or
I think any young kid that plays sports has the passion of thinking that they potentially could become a pro athlete, and then you start to realize your own limitations. I had a decent high school career at football. Ended up playing more track and a little bit of basketball, but yeah, as a young kid, I would have loved to become either an Air Force pilot or NASCAR driver, which is interesting. I maybe had a thing for those rushed type of
nice.
occupations, and then Would love to play football, but kind of knew that that wasn't going to be an opportunity for me. So how could I use my passion in sports different ways? And as you mentioned, went back to school and became a teacher and a football coach, and got a little bit of that itch resolved by coaching some football for a few years.
Yeah, before we move on to your college, do you root for any teams that your dad doesn't root for, or is it pretty much 100% alignment?
Yeah, that's my dad grew up in St. Louis, so he probably won't admit it as much, but he's definitely still a Cardinals fan, even though we've moved our allegiances to Kansas City.
Okay.
Besides that, he was a graduate of Mizzou, so I went to a lot of Mizzou football games in the 80s and 90s, and that wasn't very good years for Mizzou football. So he still roots for Mizzou. I ended up at Kansas State, so that's where my passion is. So that's at least a little bit of divergence from our fandoms together. But most everything else, Royals, Chiefs, we share that together.
Yeah, my father and my older brother were Jets and Yankees fans, so it was ingrained in me.
Oh, so you're not getting out of New York without, with those.
Exactly. But usually, back in the day, it was Jets. You were a Jets Mets fan and Yankees Giants. But I think today it's a little more wishy-washy since both the Jets and the Giants play in New Jersey.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you went to K-State, but you was hospitality and business administration your original majors, or did you change it during the course of the journey from freshman to graduating?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I was 18, one of my first jobs out of high school was working at a hotel actually by Table Rock Lake down in Branson, Missouri. Didn't really, just needed a summer job. Had finished up my sports career, so I really wanted to see what I wanted to be involved with. And I really fell in love with that industry just because I like people interaction. I love finding out things about, interest of people, different, like I said, travel. So decided to pursue that career. Ended up after a few years of different colleges at Kansas State. My brother was actually attending there, so I got to visit it and meet some people and thought it was a good hospitality program as well. So I started down that career field and also got my minor in business, knowing that the pursuit was to pursue a career in the hotel industry, and was able to graduate from Kansas State and then start that career, and then change directions a little bit after that.
Yeah, interesting. So what was your first job out of undergraduate and how'd you get it?
My first job in undergrad was actually at a hotel right across from the campus at Kansas State. I became a front desk manager just with my experience from a hotel. Had success there. I was probably working about 50 to 60 hours a week while taking 15 to 18 credit hours and somehow still trying to maintain a social life. So that was a crazy year and a half, and then ended up taking an internship to finish off college at a Hyatt resort in Albuquerque, New Mexico for 6 months, and got good experience there. And then after graduating from Kansas State, came back to Kansas City and worked at the Hyatt, but I believe it's a Sheraton now. It's got the rotating restaurant, and
All right.
that was my first job post college. I was again a front office manager at that location.
Any crazy stories when you were working at the hotel in Manhattan? All those hours, crazy, it was the K-State weekend or the alumni weekend. Any good stuff you can reveal?
Yeah, I mean, obviously being across the campus in a college town, you see a lot of drunk patrons coming back to hotels. So sometimes we find people sleeping in a hallway, or have to figure out what they're doing. Really, the intense moments were football weekends. K-State was really good. They were I think they had like 5 or 6 11 win seasons in a row. So prices were skyrocketed for those weekends, 2-night minimum. And then all of a sudden our sales team oversells us by a few rooms, and you're trying to figure out, okay, there's nowhere to walk these customers. Obviously people will be very upset, and it was almost like a game to try to figure out how to hit 100% occupancy without, getting any upset, pissed off clients at your hotel. So that was probably the biggest challenge or biggest excitement for Manhattan weekends. Besides, obviously, like I said, the drunk guests maybe in a hallway or two.
Yeah. So no drug bust or anything like that. A happened on your watch.
No, that was I had some crazier stories at the Hyatt in Kansas City because that's a 700 room property, and we had a drug bust. I worked with the FBI once to slow down a guest that was checking in because they wanted to apprehend him. That was an exciting evening
Wow.
where you're communicating with the FBI to try to get this guy that has been robbing hotels, robbing different businesses in the Kansas City area, and then obviously drunk people as well at that property. And yeah, that's pretty. There's some wild, a little bit more wild stories there. We had the Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles, staying in our hotel, and someone pulled the fire alarm at 5 in the morning, and I had the entire hotel in my lobby, and Eagles players not exactly happy that they've been woken up at 5 a.m. with a noon kickoff.
Oh God.
And I promise I didn't do it. As a Chiefs fan, that was not me on that one.
Never acquitted.
I wouldn't doubt that it was potentially a Chiefs fan that did pull the alarm.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. So what, while you were working in the hotel industry, kind of what was your decision to, hey, get your master's in secondary education and kind of pursue a teaching career?
Yeah, like I said, I love the industry. I love the people. I love the fast-paced environment. But at the end of the day, I went home a lot of days not feeling fulfilled. I felt like, maybe I made a guest happy. A lot of times guests are, they'll give you more critiques than compliments. So I realized I wasn't really, my purpose, I really feel, is making an impact on people's lives. And I didn't feel like that opportunity really existed. It was more transactional than long term. We obviously had guests that come to us multiple times throughout the year, and you develop relationships there. But I felt something was missing in my career, so I knew it was going to be a lot of hours, a lot of weekends, a lot of holidays, and starting to get serious with my future wife, and thinking about family and really what kind of impact you want to leave on the world. And a lot of times I tell my employees that I hire, you only get one opportunity at life. And if you're not chasing something that you're passionate about, or you really feel like it's a love, and as well as not only chasing, but you're also going to be at work the majority of your life, which is somewhat sad to say. So if you have the opportunity to be able to pursue the passion and career you want to, I think that's obviously the best for any individual to do that. So that's when I decided that the hotel business was going to be very transactional for me. I had a passion for teaching. I had a passion for kids. I wasn't the best student when I came up in high school, and I really felt like there was a different opportunity to connect with kids and how to teach them. So I really instilled with me the teachers that I connected with over the years, and that's when I decided to go back and get my master's and go into be a high school teacher.
Interesting. It's like, leadership, especially sales leadership, but it's really, your 10% of your top performers, you got a bottom 10 that you really can't do much about. But it's at 80%, and same thing with students, right? You can make the biggest impact on the 80% to get them motivated to learn and things like that. And I totally agree with people. We're at work a lot. My drive was always to make it fun. Not that you can't, not that it's going to be stand-up comedy routines, but you spend a lot of time with each other, and if it's not fun. And you have to have the right people there, right? So if people don't want to be on that team and do what you're doing and believe in your principles and values and what you're trying to achieve, that's fine. Let them do what they need to do. But it's, if you're not having fun and it's a bad environment, you're not going to do great things together. So
yeah, and luckily, I think I've had a mix of good teachers, good bosses, bad bosses, and I think the biggest opportunity for people is to take those any type of learning experience, and even if it's a negative one, think about how you would change that or how you would do it differently.
Right.
And I'm a big believer in failing. I think some people are scared to fail. I think failure brings excitement because to me it brings opportunity, and you learn through your failures more than even sometimes your successes. So taking a lot of some of those strong bosses or bad bosses and really try to adapt my leadership style to that as well.
Right. Yeah. You learn from people the great things they did, and also the things you would not want to emulate. So you learn from everyone, and now, just going back to teaching, like I've in my early career, I taught at Park University, just the adjunct, and I did a semester about 2 years ago at KU in their undergraduate business program. But the thing about teachers, especially, elementary, junior high, high school, you never forget a great teacher, no matter, like I still remember, Mr. Blair, eighth grade history. He was great. He was a motivator, and he just was passionate about it. He was passionate about helping the students, and, just great teachers really make a difference. So.
Yeah, I really believe that. Hopefully, some former high school students still remember me that way. But yeah, I think successful teachers also reach each individual to their learning styles and find what motivates them. I think that's also something that teaching has taught me a lot on how to work with my employees as well, and how to adapt your management or leadership style to each individual.
Yeah. What was your big surprise when you became a football coach? So I don't know if you were the head coach or assistant, but what was kind of like, oh, wow, I remember playing, but I didn't know coaches did this.
Yeah. And it obviously has evolved a lot just because of technology, right? We when I was playing, we had VHS, and that's how we had to watch tape.
Yeah.
And then, I really was part of our coaching staff that really implemented even our online program. Huddle is what we were using to break down film. I think that's what you don't understand as a high school player, is how much pressure high school coaches put on themselves for very little pay. But to set a team up for success in football, you really have to break down film to know you have to scout yourself and scout your opponent, and then try to bring that scouting to your team and to the on-field performance. And I think that was a big learning, a different, from being a player to a coach, especially how times have changed, the access that you have to video, where, I could go home and, my positional group, I could send them 20 clips of the plays I wanted them to watch and really focus and drill down. So it just created, one thing, it's created more work, but it obviously created more opportunities. And then, how competitive the other teams are. So it's just gotten more and more. And after I've left high school coaching, now I see them using tablets on the sideline, video on the sideline, which I think just recently got approved in Missouri a couple of years ago. So you can see how much football it's a chess. You can pick up strategies by someone pointing the wrong way or tilting. You're looking for all of those tells to give you any kind of advantage on the field.
Right. Yeah, I had a brief stint at Baser Linwood. It's a suburb of Kansas City, Baser, and I didn't coach during the season. I basically was trying to get a position coach, and I was working with them, but I couldn't commit because I got a new job and yada yada. But I was amazed at the time these people put in. Steve Hopkins was the coach. Steve had a long, successful career at Blue Springs. He had Liddell Betts go to the NFL, and a wide receiver, and Kelly Donahoe was the KU quarterback who became, I think, the Blue Springs coach later on. But yeah, him and his staff just put countless hours in. I was amazed. And then one of my son-in-laws was the cornerback coach of Blue Valley Northwest here in Kansas City, and he just did it this past season. And he goes, "It's a lot of work."
It's a tremendous, a lot of work, and I think, fortunately and unfortunately, a lot of times it comes down to the talent you have, especially with high school, public schools, where you're not recruiting. I think also as young men in high school, you have different levels of commitment to the program as well, and it's trying to get. It's just like any successful business, right? It's trying to get buy-in from everybody, from parents to the players to the community, of what you're trying to do. And I think in our fast-paced social media environment these days, there's not a lot of patience for coaches and success.
Right. The short attention span of people with social media. Yeah, and that's the other. I'm sure you mentioned it briefly, but managing and leading the parents is probably one of the biggest parts of the job too.
Yeah, as you talked about surprises, I think that was one of the biggest ones is parents, thinking obviously they want to support their child and see them perform. But it's having those difficult conversations with parents where, they see their kid in a different light than you get to see the kid at practice every day and see how they commit to the team. And sometimes it's just, the kid's a great kid. It just doesn't have the talent to be starting. It could be put the team at. You don't want them to also be the problem of the team or the excuse of the team. So hopefully, I think I've learned from a lot of coaches. I think our number one goal is to try to develop young men. And sometimes the community is with you on that. Sometimes parents want, wins rather than maybe
Right.
the development of their child.
Yeah, totally get it. When you were in getting your master's degree, you were a lifelong fanatic of the Kansas City Chiefs,
Yep.
and that was some lean years probably, and probably some good ones. But I think around 2007, you and your brother come up with this idea to blog about the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's really the foundation and the embryo of what you're doing now and the journey since 2007. So why don't you tell that story, Zach?
Yeah, my brother and I had moved back to our hometown, Springfield, both a little bit rudderless. So not knowing exactly what we wanted to do with our careers. I had come back to start at least my master's in education. So I had at least an idea of the next career for me. So I was substitute teaching. At the same time, I noticed the Kansas City Star had a Royals blog within the Kansas City Star. And I reached out to my brother, and the Chiefs had some really bad years, and we had a lot of opinions, as you noted, very fanatical about our Chiefs. That was instilled by his father, and then John Elway tried to ruin my childhood for many years. And so when I saw the Kansas City Royals blog, I called my brother and I just said, why don't we do this for the Chiefs? Because he had just actually entered a contest for Fox Sports, and it was called Fox Sports Next Great Sports Writer. He got far in the competition, ended up getting second. And I still tell people that today that him getting second was the best thing that happened for both of us. Because one is if he got first, he would have gone on to have a career with Fox Sports, and maybe the idea never happens. And when he gets second, obviously he didn't have a job with Fox. I saw the Royals blog on Kansas City Star, and I told him I had a little bit of background in web design and a little bit of background in graphic design. I always tinkered and played. I even created my first website when I was 12, and said, let's start a Chiefs blog and see what happens, and let's get our thoughts and opinions out there. And so we created a site called Arrowhead Addict and started to work on that, and then quickly realized this is 2007. We launched these sites before Twitter was a few months later, and iPhones were a few months later. Facebook had been out for a little bit, but the change of our lives really happened really quickly as we got smartphones, right? And so we were a little bit ahead of that launching. And so this is when really popular blogs were popping up. To enter the space was very easy. So it was really just buying a domain and using CMS like WordPress, and you could launch a site within 24 hours. And we quickly realized there was other individuals doing this, but we felt like we had at least more expertise on how to launch a site, how to get it up and running, how to get ads running on your site, how to get good SEO referrals. And it was kind of just learning as we go. I felt like if you were building a boat, we built the floor and just we're trying not to sink. And we took no outside investment, which I think hindsight, you could always say maybe it was a good or bad idea, but it allowed us to kind of create the company we wanted. So quickly after Arrowhead Addict was launched, we realized let's do this for the entire NFL and tap into fans' passions. So we created FanSided and started to launch specifically NFL blogs, but then over the years, obviously that went into every professional team in the US, and then college sports and then entertainment.
So talk about the early days. What was the actual URL to get to the blog?
Yeah, so it was the URL first is arrowheadaddict.com. So you would see that, and then we would start to link all the NFL sites together. So we started, the next site was a Miami Dolphin site, Fanatic, and then predominantly Orange, our Bronco site. And we just kept trying to find people on the internet that were passionate creators, and not necessarily, they didn't really want to mess with the business side of things. They wanted to create content and share their opinion online. So that was an opportunity for us to work with others, handle that side of the business for them, allow them to be what they're good at, is content creation, and then just build out a network. So then about a month or so after that, we came up with, let's do this as a network. So we need a more broader company name. For about a day or two, it was just for fans. And we weren't really excited or sold on that name. And I started thinking about it, and I really felt like, what are fans? We are typically one-sided to our fandom, right?
Right.
So we took out the one and replaced one with fan, and that's how we came up with the FanSided brand.
Nice. So was your brother Aaron the original blog writer when you launched the Kansas City site then?
Yeah, my brother Adam was
Adam, I'm sorry.
Yeah, all good. He's a creative mind. One time he compared Chiefs players to Led Zeppelin songs. So he was very creative. I did a lot of our graphic design. It was social media is just getting started, so you can see how even now how much graphic design is involved with social media and to get people's attention. I'm by far no means a writer, so I usually stayed away from that, and I focused on more of the business operations. And my brother focused on creative, hiring writers, reviewing writers, trying to find the best talent out there. And that's kind of how we were a perfect team together, because of both of our passions and experiences kind of aligned for us to be able to run this company.
Yeah, I love that. I have to ask. So Adam had the Chiefs players aligned with Led Zeppelin songs. Who was A Whole Lot of Love then?
Oh gosh, I'd have to go back into the deep archives to see if,
it could have been Derek Thomas, possibly.
It might have been. Yeah. It was. I should have. There's one of those pieces from the early days where you're like, I should have kept this one.
Yeah, right.
My brother hasn't. He's also a screenplay writer now. He's very passionate about film and movies and that type of content. So he loved kind of morphing those two worlds.
Yeah.
And so I know he's done it with Marvel characters and various others, but
right,
was really the wild, wild west. Legacy publishers usually controlled the media, and the ability to launch websites with little to no investment at that time really kind of flattened the playing field. I think some people would say for good or bad, but it did create us an opportunity to create a new company that also allowed people from non-traditional backgrounds to also get experience and to get into this world of journalism and storytelling and content creation. And that's one thing that I think we really believed in the early days is creating opportunities for people that might not have that opportunity elsewhere.
According to your LinkedIn, it looked like you were teaching and part of the school district for about 7 years. Probably when you started your business, you were kind of doing both. Like, at what point did you say, hey, I love teaching, but this is a full-time job and I can impact more people probably this way, and my passion of sports and things like that?
Are you drowning in boring corporate communications? Palacio and Partners is here to rescue you. We transform internal podcasts from snooze fest to must-listen content that actually connects your team and strengthens your culture. Imagine podcast episodes that make your employees laugh while staying informed. Our founder, Jeff Palacio, doesn't just create podcasts, he creates conversations that break through the noise. Whether you're a growing startup or a massive corporation, we turn your company's story into audio gold. Leadership becomes human. Remote teams feel connected. Your message cuts through the clutter. Palacio and Partners, where corporate communications gets a fun makeover. Let's make your podcast work harder than your email inbox ever could. Jeff is happy to share his insights on podcasting with you. You can contact him via LinkedIn or schedule a Zoom call via the link in the episode description.
like you said, we started the company when I was in graduate school, and maybe, if I focused on it solely, we could have made the company grow faster. But it was the opportunity for me to be able to keep an income while we're still trying to invest in the company. So a lot of the money any of the revenue we were earning, we were putting back into the company. So teaching allowed me to kind of have that flexibility. I will say I woke up early in the morning, answered emails, went through any business tasks I had, obviously prepared for the school day, then taught. A lot of my teaching I was a business teacher, so I focused on mostly graphic design, web design, video production type classes that students were getting real life work throughout the school district. In the fall, obviously, I was super busy with, I'd go to football practice, do coaching, and then I would just come home and work. So basically, if I had any free time in my day, it was either focused on FanSided or developing lesson plans for coaching. Probably for about those 7 years, as you mentioned, my social life diminished greatly. But I had a fun youth and fun college experience where I really wanted to see how far we could take it. And I think my brother and I thought, I honestly don't know what our end goal was. It was maybe to get acquired, maybe see how far we could take it. And then, like you said, about 5 years in the classroom, I moved into the curriculum department. I believe I was a successful teacher and saw that in the school district. But again, stopped coaching my last 2 years, and knew the business was going to take off. And then my last year in education is when we were getting serious about getting offers for the company. And my brother was tremendous at driving that home. We brought in a third partner in 2011. Was also Matt Blake is his name, and was tremendous to the business. He really understood the ad op side of websites, and also had a great background that he had sold a local Phoenix sports blog as well. And we decided to bring him as a partner, and we were a successful trio after that as well.
What was one or two of the biggest surprises when you started the company and said, oh shit, I didn't know we were going to have to do this, or, were any of those type moments for you?
Yeah, and I think going back to my analogy of just building a boat, it's like you only know what you know, and then you find out like, oh my God, we should have been doing this a long time ago. I think, like I talked about failures too, is I think we learned a lot from those as well. Keeping websites active and live is more work than people really realize. I think just driving the ad revenue, and then I think the big learning curve for me, where I felt like we got another master's or an MBA, was taking our business to financial advisors to get our business acquired. And that was a whole new world for me. And I had obviously some business classes in my undergrad, working with financial reports in the hotel industry, but that kind of environment is a whole different environment of mergers and acquisitions, and learned a lot in that stage. And you also learn like, oh shit, if we did this a little bit better a few years ago, maybe it would be a little bit different today. So that was a big curve.
It's always going to be like that. You said, oh, I should have done this 2 years ago or 3 years ago. But I mean, you do it when you're ready to do it. That's what I think. And you partnered with Sports Illustrated pretty early on. What was that like? And did you ever attend a Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue photo shoot?
The first one is we had partnered. We never had our internal sales team, so we worked. That was also figuring out like what's the best strategy here for ad optimization and revenue. So we had worked with different partners prior to Sports Illustrated, so there's a little bit of learning. But we saw Sports Illustrated as an opportunity for us to get really strong premium rates. And they were in a transitional period too. They had just broke off from CNN and Warner, and Time had become their own entity. Sports Illustrated was hurting a little bit for audience. So it was a great opportunity for us to reach out and say, hey, we have this great local content. It really drills down to the team, where you're covering everything about the team, and they're more of a national site. So partnered with them just in a traffic swap, and they would obviously sell our ad inventory. And so that was the first 2 years of the partnership with Sports Illustrated. And I think obviously we became pretty integral to their business. And after that time, Time Inc. and Sports Illustrated decided to acquire our business. Obviously, that took some time to work out financial details and how that looked for each other. But that's how we ended up. And I have not attended anything swimsuit. I actually, I have not. I unfortunately, I was going to go to Sports Person of the Year, their annual award show this year, and I didn't go prior years. But this year, my plane was actually canceled because of ice in Springfield. So
Oh, jeez.
I don't think I still have not. Oh, I attended a Sports Illustrated party at the Super Bowl, which was fun as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So talk about that. So you're now acquired, and you're not technically running the show, or you still keep running it, but you don't own it, or maybe you got some equity stake. But talk about that process and how was it different for you running FanSided at that point?
Yeah, I think for us, again, it's what you don't know is what you don't know. We were thrilled. I mean, as a child that was born in the 80s, I would run home from school to get the Sports Illustrated
Yeah.
magazine. That's how we got content back in when it was either that or watching Sports Center, 3 times in a row. So getting that tangible asset and going from front to back was just something. Getting acquired by also Time Inc. Time Magazine is obviously iconic American brand, as well as Sports Illustrated. So having the thrill of being acquired by something that you looked up to as a child was a really special moment. I know for my brother and myself. But then you kind of get exposed to this mega company corporate world, and you start to realize, oh, we don't really have much power anymore. And I think this guy's kind of go for all of our acquisitions. Is we've been really respected of running a successful company and having a good culture. So at times we have gotten less support because they don't want to mess a good thing up. But a lot of times when we were at Time Inc., we quickly realized Time Inc. wasn't preparing themselves for a future growth. They were really preparing Time Inc. to get acquired by larger assets. So the last 2 years really of Time Inc. for us, I got a great understanding of the corporate world and how that works within large publishers. But it was kind of, they were looking at selling the business and they got acquired by Meredith the last 2 years. And that's another thing I found out in this industry is I think a lot of things get gobbled up and then broken apart again. You can see that with like Sports Illustrated and Time. They were gobbled up and put together, and then obviously broke apart, and that was something to navigate as well, and learned a lot about having to work within that larger corporate team and trying to get things that you need and are going to be successful for your team, and that's always a challenge because I think you're so close to your brand and your people, and exactly how to run the business, but everybody. Every part of the brands or different brands within Time Inc. We're fighting for the same thing.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And you mentioned this, the Sports Illustrated Weekly. I mean, it was so. I was the same way. I wasn't a child of the '80s, but I'll say the '70s. And yeah, just the weekly Sports Illustrated. You couldn't wait to go cover to cover. What great writers were there, and it was more a time where not athletes were put on a pedestal, but they were more inspiring stories, I'll say, versus, Aaron Rodgers not showing up to the, a required, OTA or whatever, because he's in Egypt, or whatever,
Yeah.
It's just different time. So talk about where FanSided is now, and then I'd like to talk about your involvement in the Special Olympics, but it seems it's just so broad. I'm sure you have the stats memorized, but I know it's over 300 plus sports and entertainment communities. But talk a little bit about where you're at and maybe where you're going in the future.
I think it's been an interesting journey, as you noted. We got acquired by Meredith, and then Meredith really were selling off Time Inc.'s male-dominated brands. They were really interested more in Entertainment Weekly and People. So those 2 years were a little bit of a rudderless ship from a corporate partner. And then we ended up in the hands of Minute Media. And this was going to be my third acquisition. My brother and my other partner decided to leave the business. My brother, I think, left in around 2017. Matt, our other partner, decided not to come over to Minute Media. And so really with that, the third acquisition, I was like, is this really what I want to do? So I made a commitment to myself to get the team over for a year and see how this looks and see what happens. And honestly, Minute Media has been a phenomenal partner for us. They've really believed in what we do, invested in what we've done. And that's where we hoped time was going to do for us in Sports Illustrated. Unfortunately, we just didn't really get that investment for those 4.5+ years. And then joining with Minute Media, another challenge is we get acquired right before COVID. So going through an acquisition takes time, but then going through an acquisition during a pandemic was a very interesting challenge. But I think it was a great opportunity for Minute Media and FanSided to learn from each other. And I think that helped us, make future acquisitions. So the brand is in really good health. We continually have our best year every year. So every year we've been with Minute Media, we've increased our audience, we've increased revenue, we've increased talent and our brand. And that's been really exciting, as well as, different partnerships, as you mentioned, with Special Olympics. If standalone ComScore and sports digital audience, we would be in the top 10 for FanSided alone. With Minute Media, we fluctuate between 2, 3, and 1, as well as the video audience throughout Minute Media. And I like to think that we've kind of come full circle, that a little piece of FanSided success for Minute Media helped us acquire STN, which is one of the biggest video distributions in North America. And then obviously we acquired the licensing rights to Sports Illustrated at the beginning of last year, about a year ago from this time. So really proud of what our team has accomplished over the last couple of years. And it's been really just exciting to see where we're going to take it. And I have no plans of leaving anytime soon. I love our people. I love the culture we've built. Really inspired by Minute Media's leadership, and see where we could take this thing.
And you're mostly it's basically 100% remote. Yeah.
We were remote in 2007.
Right.
And so we've had a virtual kind of work environment ever since then. And we had a Chicago office pre-pandemic it was really nice. And then obviously post-pandemic, everybody moved outside of the city. And I know Minute Media was really passionate about having people in office. So it was a little bit concerned of the acquisition. How is this going to play out for us? But the pandemic, in some weird way, helped us see, the opportunity of having a remote environment, because you're not just picking talent from one city. If you're in New York, you're just picking talent from New York. Really, for us, it allows us to not only just be North America or US, it allows us to open up opportunities across the world. So we do have some employees that sit in the UK, but yeah, 100% mostly remote workforce, supported by our product team in Tel Aviv, our commercial team in New York, and various other cities in the US. We also have a London office, but the FanSided brand, all of our employees work remotely.
Yeah, so you're basically 18 years, give or take, running a company that's fully remote. I would love to hear your key takeaways in terms of building a culture when you're 100% remote, especially when you're onboarding new employees.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in culture. I think, as we talked about earlier, if it's from the Jets or to some hotels experience I've had, a bad culture is just a miserable experience for all. And I think that really can make or break a company. So how do you build a culture in a remote environment? I really believe is that from that start. So something I talked about my leaders is that it doesn't even start on the onboarding process. It starts in the interview process. We need to find passionate people that want to be a part of our company and our culture. But also we look for people that can also bring additive to our culture. How do we improve our overall experience? But I really believe it starts in that interview and onboarding process. And luckily, I've heard from most of our new employees would tell you, wow, this is kind of different than any company I've worked for before. And I think it really starts with my leaders. Talk about caring for one another, creating an environment that people want to be at. We all have life experiences, and sometimes we go through ups and downs in our personal lives. Sometimes it's just, hey, I want to go see my kid's baseball game. And That's, I think, the nice thing about remote work, is it allows a lot more flexibility than coming into an office every day, and creating those opportunities for our employees to go pursue those life experiences that you don't get, like maybe a kid's program, or maybe it's a family member's birthday. We really encourage taking care of one another. And like I said, sometimes we'll go through ups and downs in our lives that we need more support from our fellow employees. So we really start that from the onboarding experience. We try to get to know people. I think that's something that I learned as a teacher, to find out a connection between you and a person. It could be, like we talk about the lake, and that's an instant connection. Is finding those within each individual, and then building that relationship. I think if you find passionate people, you build a relationship of trust and care, everything else can be accomplished. We can teach how to do things. We can give better candid feedback when we've built up that trust. And I think that's what really brings a strong culture to a business.
No, I love that. Love that. Talk about your involvement with the Special Olympics. I know you're involved there as a partnership as well. I don't know how many years, but I know you're involved with Special Olympics and during Super Bowl Media Week. And talk about that partnership and that.
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal partnership for us. We started working with talking about, we wanted to give back, right? I think it's important for businesses to create opportunities for their employees to give back. And how do you do that in a remote environment? It's not like we can all just go volunteer at the same spot. So me and a fellow employee, Hunter Armour, were talking about this for a while. And then he was at the Super Bowl one year, made a connection at Special Olympics. And then that kind of kicked off the partnership, and really thinking about how do we, amplify these wonderful stories of people overcoming an intellectual disability to really, again, compete and give sport. And I think what we've really wanted to become is one of the leaders in the sports world of showing what inclusion truly means. So a few years ago, about 3 years ago, actually, talking with our colleagues over at Special Olympics, let's do something big and really showcases inclusion. And what not bigger event than media event than Super Bowl Media Row. So we decided to create what Special Olympics called Unified Sports. And that is people with and without an intellectual disability competing together. So a lot of high schools will have unified basketball, different unified sports. So we took that kind of idea from on the court or on the field to off the court, off the field, and bring a Special Olympic athlete that wanted to pursue a career in media out to the Super Bowl with us. They work alongside our team, just like anybody would, interviewing athletes, interviewing celebrities. And that was the first year was a success for us. And it's kind of one of those things, we didn't know what it would look like until we did it. And Malcolm Harris Gowdy was our Special Olympic athlete, phenomenal person that just really wants to pursue a career in media. So again, we followed up that opportunity in the last 2 years. We brought out a second athlete, Wyatt, this year. They're paid correspondents for our team. They work just alongside, and they get after it too. It's amazing just to see how much passion they have and want to pursue this career. So it's something that we've done at the Super Bowl. It's fun because the Chiefs going back every year. Andy Reid has recognizes Malcolm, and I know Andy's passionate about Special Olympics and the work the Chiefs do with the organization. We also took our team to the U.S. Summer Games in 2022 and volunteered. I think that was a great, like you said, how do you build culture? Doing an offsite that embeds volunteering was really, it was a lot of work for our team, but you could see building the relationships. It's a unique experience when you see a fellow employee give back and work alongside you. I think that creates a lot of trust, and you just get to understand who each individual is. And also, the other reason we thought the Special Olympics was a great opportunity is we are an international company as Minute Media. And really, how do we create a partnership across the whole portfolio of Minute Media? And we thought Special Olympics being international was a great opportunity. So our colleagues in Israel have volunteered at their games and given back. They've also, our product team has done some technical work for Special Olympics Israel. We share stories of from the UK. And I fortunately just got back from Italy. I got invited to be an honorary guest at the Special Olympics World Winter Games, and got to go out there for about a week and
Nice.
just see all the things they do. And it's just a really amazing organization. And you think it's just all around athletics, but at these events, they're doing health screenings for every athlete. So you can, and when they did it in Florida for the US Games, it's the largest humanitarian effort in the state of Florida ever, because 50,000 or so athletes are getting health services that they might not get. And then there's a lot of things that come after that too, but
Right.
phenomenal experience. Really look to extend the partnership. We want to go beyond just the Super Bowl. How do we make it more of a yearly offering, or different activations at all-star games, different events like that?
Who are some of the, over the years at Super Bowl Media Week, who are some of the good people out there, celebrities, athletes that have participated? Would just love to hear that.
Yeah, George Kittle, amazing human being.
Love
Uh,
that.
yeah, George is, he was one of the first to help us tell Malcolm he would be covering the Super Bowl. And then George makes sure he seeks out Malcolm every year to go say hi to him. And Vernon Davis is another one. Something about these tight ends.
Right.
Um, Andy Reid,
Yeah.
obviously. But it's been cool. Malcolm's been able to interview Patrick at opening night on a Monday night, and then after the game, get a question into
Wow.
Patrick and Andy. So it's been a unique opportunity to see just us continually increase and expand that offering. We just released our Super Bowl Media Week video of highlighting that partnership about a week or so ago. So I encourage anybody to look at it on LinkedIn, YouTube, all those different assets. But it truly it's fun to see the players. Aaron Jones from the Minnesota Vikings used to be a Special Olympics coach, so that was really great interviewing him this year and talking about his experience with Special
Yeah.
Olympics as well.
Yeah. Just thank you and your team for doing all that for the Special Olympics. It's a great cause. So I love that. Zach, I'd like to help two groups of people on the podcast. One is that recent college graduate, whether it's K-State, KU, Manhattan University, my alma mater. What advice do you have for them as they're getting ready to graduate and getting that first job and beginning their career? What advice?
Yeah, I think something I would tell myself if I was graduating college is networking, building out your own personal network. It's tough. Sometimes you'll reach out to people, and we're all busy. But building out a network and communicating with people, I think is such a strong opportunity. And then I would say at the beginning of your young career, be ready to work hard. I think. I know that's a cliche, or everyone says this, but I think your willingness to work harder than others, I think that is it's a great professional sports analogy. I don't know if anybody works harder than Patrick Mahomes, even though he's gifted athletically. It's like, how are you going to compete against other people? Because I think one thing that's different for people graduating now, that's probably different for even you and me, was that the world is getting flatter by the day, and more competitive by the day. You introduce AI, you introduce, like I said, global economies. It's getting more and more competitive, and the ways to be rise to the top is connecting with people, being an effective communicator, networking, and then just how hard are you willing to work. And obviously, I still believe in work-life balance. We really push that at FanSided and Meredith Media, but trying to find something you're passionate about, and that you can go all in on, is really, again, I don't know if that's unique advice, but I think it can't be communicated enough. It's just, like I said, it's even a more competitive environment than we experienced.
Yeah. No, I love the networking part. I do a small 6-week online course live with recent college graduates, take them through a whole process. But networking is a big, and what I tell them is everybody remembers, no matter how long ago they graduated, is the anxiety, the fear of getting a job and that whole process, because most universities don't teach you anything about it for the most part. And I say, people will want to meet with you because they still remember how bad it was and they want to offer their advice. So reach out to them. They'll help you.
I completely agree with the anxiety. I was even just last week. Was something I was in Italy. I wasn't with any of my colleagues. I had a few people at Special Olympics I knew, but they were obviously working and busy. And I'm going to these events, and the inner judge or the saboteur is telling you like, I don't know if you're good enough to network with these people. And you kind of just got to put yourself out there and get over some of that. And like you said, um, you know, after overcoming that initial anxiety, I'm meeting people from the UN, I'm meeting people from boards of Chick-fil-A, boards of other businesses. And it's like, oh my gosh. And like you said, people want to talk to you. They want to get to know
Right.
people. It builds all of our kind of collective understanding of the world as you network too. And you never know. You never know
Yeah.
when someone's going to open a door for
Yeah.
you, or you might need that door open for someone else.
Yeah. And the other take you had that I want to just briefly touch on is this, it's almost, you can learn like anything today. Like it really, there's no thing you don't know how to do or find out how to do or fact, with AI and Chat GPT, Claude, Perplexity, all the tools out there, and LinkedIn Learning and Udemy. There's so many ways to learn. Just YouTube videos. I mean, it's almost impossible, but you're going to separate yourself by actually doing the learning, applying it, and some people call them soft skills in terms of leadership and caring and things like that. But it's not really soft skills. Those are the skills that AI will never be able to do.
Right.
To inspire people, motivate them, develop them. It's AI is not going to do that. But
Now, I think it goes into your emotional intelligence, right? I think that's your skill set. If you can develop a stronger emotional intelligence and how you work with other people, as you know, AI is there's always humans are going to want to interact with humans, right?
exactly.
We're natural, community-driven people, typically. And as you noted, like I fixed my dishwasher by watching YouTube. You can learn literally a lot of the things I taught in high school. I self-taught myself.
Right.
You said web design, or
Yeah.
and that's the really cool thing about the technology and the exposure we have to content is you can really develop any type of skill set. The one that it can't be taught is really how you communicate, and your emotional intelligence is something
Right.
you have to kind of craft and work at. But yeah, I'm excited about AI. I was telling an employee the other day, I know people get scared about it, but I really see is if you get good at prompting, you really almost start to have your own internal staff. You can
Oh,
have,
it's amazing.
I was watching someone and I was like, man, this guy is so successful, but then I realized he's got, this person handling everything of this person that writes his speeches, this person that does all these
Yeah.
things. And I was sitting there like, AI can really almost build out your own little, give you leverage and how you can complete work. And I think that's the fear and the concern. And
Right.
I heard a good analogy about, accountants. They used to do everything by hand and ledgers. And the computers obviously got them out of doing that and got them to a higher level of learning. And I think that's my hope. Maybe I'm a wishful thinker, but I hope that, we say we use 10% of our brain. Hopefully AI allows us to unlock another 5 to 10% of our brain,
Right.
rather than going backwards and maybe only using 5%.
Right. Yeah. Just
That will be the challenge.
use the incremental for great things. There you go. That other group is that, once you're an individual contributor out of college for the most part, and if you want to take that career path to actually lead a team of people on an org chart and you become that, first time manager, what advice do you have for them as they begin that leadership journey?
Be open and ready for failure, and embrace it. I think we're scared of taking risks or scared of maybe not adapting. And so we don't pursue things that might lead to failure. And I really believe that obviously, there's different types of failure, but I think that's where you really get the strongest learning opportunities. But it's not only how you fail, it's how you respond to that failure as well.
Right. Yeah.
And I see a lot of people, unfortunately, get frustrated by it and maybe not trying to overcome that. But I believe that pursuit, you're going to have failures in life, and it's all about how you overcome that.
Yeah. It's that fail forward mentality, you learn
Great.
from it
Yeah.
and move the needle whichever direction you need to move it.
And I think you can see that in any successful historical figure, if it's from Michael Jordan to Abe Lincoln, they had major failures in their life that they
Yeah.
quickly adapted to and responded.
Yeah. Steve Jobs got fired from Apple.
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's, those are always tough times to go through, but tough times end and good times come around as well.
Yep. Absolutely. Zach, thank you so much for coming on the Corporate Couch today. I'm grateful that Mark Schaefer introduced us. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll thank Mark as well. And this was really great. I appreciate that. I'm not always great at doing these things, so just giving the opportunity is special to me. So I appreciate that, Jeff.
What a great guy Zach is. I really felt I was having a beer with him, just talking about stuff, because he's been involved in sports, entertainment, basically his whole career, and had a passion for the Chiefs that turned into a career. Asked him about the Jets and what's wrong with them, and he went right to what I think is the leadership. The leadership sucks, which is so true. But I mean, just a great person, Nixa, Missouri, outside of Springfield, Missouri, for those of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, small town, grew up loving the Chiefs, turned that into a career. And it shows the career journey of, the vast majority of all our guests too are it's just a zigzag line. He was in hospitality, kicking the Eagles out of their hotel room at 5 a.m. because somebody pulled a fire alarm. He said it wasn't him, so that's good. But he's in hospitality. He said he didn't have a purpose. He didn't feel like he was impacting the world. And then he went to teaching, and he had a passion for teaching and coaching football. And then he said, hey, the Kansas City Star has a Royals blog. He went to his brother, who was a writer, said, hey, why don't we create a Kansas City Chiefs blog? And his brother was a great writer, came in second, the next great Fox sports writer. Thankfully he did, else they would never created FanSided. Turned, his success at FanSided into helping Special Olympics. He set up the whole media day with the Special Olympics as part of the Super Bowl media week. And it's just incredible the things he's done, and had 3 acquisitions. He was part of Sports Illustrated. They were partners early on in FanSided. Incredible. I mean, to have an iconic magazine like Sports Illustrated partner, and he was still teaching at the time too. So I think they launched the company, and it was about 8 years before he finally said, yeah, I'm going to do this full time. It was fun. It was a great conversation. And then I love this take on remote cultures. FanSided has been remote for 17 years or however long it's been in existence. So I asked him about building culture when you're all remote, and he had great insight on that. It starts with the hiring process, then it starts with onboarding, all things I believe in. And, it's caring about people and finding connections and common connections where you can relate to people. I don't know. I thought he was great. What was your take?
We talk about this a lot on the couch, and that is that you need to find something that not only that you're good at, but you enjoy. And man, Zach, everything that he's done in all the careers that he's been in is stuff that he enjoys doing. And as soon as it's not fun anymore, he goes off and does something else. That has helped him be so successful. The concept of being 100% remote, all of your employees are 100% remote, which is really unusual, but not so unusual in the creative world, of writing and blogging and things like that. And then having to keep all that together is an amazing story. I just thought it was a great interview. He touched on this a little bit. He talked about in the early 2000s, when he started this, for the first time, it's relatively easy to get into self-publishing or blogging, if you will, in a day. You buy a domain, you get some blogging software, and you put it out there, and there you go. And self-publishing is the same kind of thing. If you want to write a book, you just write it and you submit it to a self-publisher, and they publish it. So there you go. It is what we call the democratization of the publishing industry. It used to be when I was in college, or maybe when you were in college, and you had to write a term paper and you had to have it sourced somewhere. They insisted that it be a published source. So if it was going to go in a footnote, it had to be something that was published.
Right.
And the reason for that was because there was this layer of authenticity that publishing provided, that to get something published, you had to submit it to a publisher. It had to be edited. It had to be approved. It had to be set. It had to be sold. It had to be marketed. And every case along the line there would be an opportunity for it to be thrown away and not approved beyond that point. And what that did was it added that air of authenticity to anything that was published. When you get into the early 2000s and the democratization of the publishing industry and the fact that anybody can write a blog,
right,
it throws away the barrier to entry completely.
Yeah.
And you really got to be careful about that then when you're reading things like that. Now, if you're reading a sports fan blog, like FanSided is, it's not that big of a deal because they are admittedly already fans of the particular team or the sport that they're talking about. But you can imagine that you can get into some other industries or some other topics or something where it's impossible to tell what the bias of somebody is or something like that. So I think that's a danger that we have to be aware of right now, that maybe some people, you're my age, we sometimes have a tendency to believe everything you read on the internet, or believe nothing that you read on the internet. That happens sometimes too. And the answer is, it's neither one of those is really the answer. The answer is you got to for yourself. So I think that's interesting insight.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And the other point when you say, when we talk about the early 2000s and where you founded this business, and we've seen this with other guests also, where it's a perfect storm. Like they were putting out their blog posts. He built his first website, Zach did, when he was 12 years old. So he had and he taught himself. He was self-taught, but they were coming out at the same time as Facebook and Twitter, now X, and the iPhone came out shortly after all this. So it was like kind of a perfect storm for, these distribution channels to be out there at the same time they were creating and growing the business. So
there's a lot of that going around. You can think of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates came along at exactly the right time for their own particular legacies. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos probably came along at the exact right time.
Yep.
And this is a great example of that too.
Yeah, that was prominent in the book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. They talk exactly what you just. They were just, it's a perfect storm on when they were born, which can determine your success. What kind of advice do you have for our listeners today, Joe?
I want to tell you about a friend of mine named Johnny. You've heard me talk about Johnny before.
Sure.
Well, Johnny, one time he was home and his wife said, why are you home right now? Why aren't you at work? And Johnny said, well, the boss and I had a fight and he won't take back what he said. And Johnny's wife said, so what'd he say? And Johnny said, you're fired.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.